welcome to the Feminist Frame, where we talk about pop culture through a feminist lens. And today we are going to talk about books.
Yay.
Woo, books.
I am Aubrey, here with Olivia
Hello.
and SJ.
Hey.
And we're going to talk about the books we read for the Read Harder Challenge by Book Riot.
I think, was it last December? Mm-hmm. I had mentioned to you, Aubrey, that I was doing the Read Harder Challenge. I'd done it the year before and was doing it in 2018. And you were like, wait, Olivia and I do that too. And so before you knew it, we were in a group thread. Because that's all our lives are these days, is being in group threads. Mm-hmm. And we were chatting about what books we're reading. So I don't know, Olivia, if you want to dig into what that actually is.
Yeah, so the Read Harder Challenge is a list of 24 books. And I think the idea, is to get you reading books that you wouldn't normally read or come across. So they sort of try to span different genres by different, types of folks. Get that diversity sprinkled across in both your content and genre, fiction, nonfiction. I don't know. It's pretty exciting, pretty spread out, I think.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to kind of get to tackle some of these. Some of them I'm not a big fan of, the genres, which we can get into later. Some of them are actually kind of exciting, and you really get into a book maybe you wouldn't have picked up otherwise if you weren't in this challenge. And then I do think the plus side of doing this challenge with you guys is that it definitely keeps me more engaged with the challenge, like what we're reading, and it also has that outlet for us to talk to each other about it.
Yeah, I'm super into any kind of gamification. I'm super susceptible to that. I want a token for something. I want a badge. I want credit on my Fitbit or whatever.
I've accomplished this goal.
And so having a little sheet to write down, oh, you hit this challenge right in the book that met this part of it, this particular category, and then being able to be like, hey, Olivia, hey, Aubrey, guess what book I read? And then you're like, good job. Okay, move on. I know there's something about that that's really, really satisfying for me. So
And getting to complain to someone about the books that I hated is also really important.
Sure. I'm so angry that you made me read this book.
Yeah.
And I don't usually finish the book, so I think I often would be like, hey, I tried 5 shit books this week. And I'm angry.
Oh, yeah. So, anyway, Olivia, do you want to tell us what some of the categories were?
Yeah, so we had, there was a true crime book. That's all the rage these days.
My fave.
There's a book published posthumously. I can't ever say that.
Posthumously.
It's a tricky word.
It is.
A celebrity memoir, which was not something I think I've ever thought of picking up before, but I actually ended up reading a couple last year because that was on here. They had a Western in there, which was interesting, trying to find something that fit into that genre. Yeah, a classic of genre fiction. That was exciting for me because there's definitely a lot on my list that I've been meaning to get to, but just always seems kind of daunting sometimes. So it was nice to be able to get to some books that were personally on my list and sort of force me into it. Some of the fun ones, too, were covers you hated.
What did I do for that? I don't even remember.
Because I'm definitely a person
the Killers of the Flower Moon. I counted because I already had plenty of true crime. But Killers of the Flower Moon, don't care for that cover.
You're like,
decent book.
So you took a look at the list of books you read that year, and you were like, which one has the ugliest cover? It didn't qualify.
I had already read it, and I was trying to figure out what to do for that one, and I did realize that cover is ugly. It counts.
I definitely looked at my list and was like, which one of you has the ugliest cover? The number 1 Ladies Detective Agency was the winner.
Oh.
That is unsurprising.
Yeah, it was also one of the worst books I've read last year, too.
Did you read the first one?
Yes. It was the first one in the...
Yeah, McCall Smith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he's like a old Scottish white dude that's trying to write this detective series about African women.
Yeah.
And it's
boy,
awful.
Yeah.
It is so awful.
And Jill Scott was, in the TV show on HBO, and they tried to make it into a show for a while, but
did it just like kind of teeter out and die? Like,
I think it did. Yeah, I think there's just something kind of missing when you've got someone like that maybe writing,
trying to run that narrative.
Yeah.
So, what were some of your favorite books that you read last year?
So there was one of the categories was the comic, that was not Marvel or DC or Image, some of the, the big three comic book publishers. So I went with Lumberjanes, which was a surprising pick because I absolutely loved it. I read the first volume and then just read all of the rest of them that they had.
So we all did Lumberjanes for our Read Harder challenge last year.
It is.
That's amazing.
It's such an adorable comic and concept.
It's really beautiful.
And it's amazing. It's, these young girls that are basically, it's a summer camp, similar to Scouts. They do all sorts of outdoor adventures and run across all sorts of magical creatures. And it's beautiful, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite parts about Lumberjanes?
I mean, okay, well, my favorite part was the character who wears the raccoon hat. So
yes, my favorite part was when the raccoon hat came to life. They let you they let that one sit a while before it just automatically sort of springs to life and becomes its own little character. So
yeah, I really love the art too. And for those that don't know, the writer Noelle Stevenson is a writer and I think producer on She-Ra and the Princesses of Power,
which I adore.
Yeah.
Oh my
gosh. If you are familiar with She-Ra, you should probably check out Lumberjanes. And by the way, her graphic novel, Nimona, they are adapting right now to a film.
I'm not familiar with that.
I actually have not read it, but it's been on the graphic novels you should definitely read list for a while. So I'm going to make that a point now.
I actually think I read Nimona last year for something. Yeah, I actually read it for a comic written and or illustrated by the same person. Mm-hmm. So she did both in that one. So I read it for that. It's very great. Yeah, fun kind of like sidekick to a evil villain, but are they kind of
Are you saying that the world is gray? Shades of
gray. But it's cute. It's encapsulated in one sort of volume, so you don't have to track down all of the various issues to keep up.
My comic written and drawn by the same person was My Friend Dahmer by Derf Beckderf, which I hated. And one of many true crime books I read last year, but oh my God, is this guy unlikable. I mean, and I'm not talking about Dahmer. I'm talking about the guy who wrote it.
And you love true crime too.
I do. So. And I do think, there was definitely some insight to be gained with it that there were plenty of warning signs that possibly in this day and age when school teachers and people are more attuned to when something is wrong, you know what I mean, with a child, I think that there could have been, obviously his crimes are his own fault, but I think that there could have been an intervention that things could have turned out differently in a different day and age. Mm-hmm. But this guy basically admits to mercilessly bullying him and then calling him his friend and then being the adults should have said something. And I'm or you could have and not been a dick. But okay, thanks, guy. Ooh. Glad you're making tons of money off this, by the way. Yeah, good for you. It was gross. He is a gross person and I don't like him.
Yeah, I definitely felt uncomfortable the entire time while I was reading it. And
I hated it.
Not in the way you want me to.
Right. It was just insight into something really sad that I didn't like. What did you do for that one?
Oh, yeah. So I did My Brother's Husband, which is technically manga.
Yeah, that came up on one for this year. So
okay.
Yeah. On the list.
I, at the time, was it's drawn. I think it's all the same thing. So that's what I read. And that was... it was challenging to read because manga, you may know, I didn't know, is right to left, and then think it's down. I don't know. All I know is I was constantly like, wait, I'm in the wrong. What direction am I going?
That's funny.
So, it was a really tender story about a man who I think didn't understand that his brother was gay, or wasn't really admitting to himself, and who gets, he's a widower, and then he's getting to know, or not a widower, excuse me, he's a divorcee, and he's getting to know his dead brother's husband, who's Canadian. Aww. And his husband builds a relationship with his daughter, and it's just so sweet, and just like all these little sweet moments. So I liked it quite a bit.
That sounds very touching.
Lots of comics for the Read Harder Challenge last year. Lumberjanes. Infidel was like,
oh yeah, I read that too.
I think that might have been one of my favorite reads this past.
I haven't read that one.
It was fantastic. I will definitely second that. And I'm not big on like horror comics or really just like the horror genre in general.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated Infidel.
Yeah, and I am a fan of horror, and I was skeptical about horror and comic. I mean, so I like comics fine, and I love horror. I was like, okay, well, let's see what this is like. And there were moments where I was actually reading this in a cabin, which was kind of fun and spooky, but I like turned the page and jumped at one point, and I was like, oh, wow, okay, I guess there is the power to scare people genuinely. And it was nice, too. I think you and I talked about how it's not overly heavy-handed because, it's a story of a young Muslim woman who's like dealing with these spirits that are like that thrive on xenophobia of the people in a given building, and so like that could be a bit extra. And it was, it didn't like hit you over the head with it, but you definitely got the point of like the human capacity for ugliness,
for sure,
and how it like kind of is a sort of metaphor for these demons.
So. And I definitely felt like reading it, you understand the message, and I was sort of waiting for that, after school special, like to come in and like really slam into you and like, now we've taught you this lesson, finger wagging, but it didn't do that. It was more of a like subtle kind of exploration of that and sort of let you come into that on your own. So yeah, it wasn't too pushy or anything like that. So it was really good, and the messaging as well.
Yeah.
Nice. I also read a lot of comics. For my Western, I counted On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden.
Yeah.
It's a space exploration, and they do literally explore like a planet that no one's ever been to. And it was just so lovable and wonderful. There's no men in this world.
And they don't even like mention them. So
yeah, there's no like
awesome.
You don't even really notice the absence until a while into it. But the characters are either women or non-binary, and it was beautiful. I just loved it so much, and I read it in one night.
And I think that one you like passed around to all of us. Yeah. You're like, you guys have to read this.
Trust me.
Yeah. That settled 2018, 2019 for me. So I actually popped that one into my 2019.
Oh, nice.
Read Harder Challenge, because I technically finished it like January 4th or something. So
what is it for 2019's challenge?
Do you have the list in front of you? Does anyone have it?
Yeah, I got it.
So it is a comic by an LGBTQIA creator.
Oh, nice.
Oh. Yeah.
Sweet.
But yeah, that book is beautiful and also really sweet.
I actually already read that one for this year as well, and I read Lumberjanes, the graphic novel. So I got a little bit more Lumberjanes under my belt. I saw it was one that was out there that I hadn't read yet, so I was like, well, absolutely, this is gonna be my pick for it. So.
Yeah,
nice. What else were some of you guys' favorites?
I can talk about things that I hate now.
Well, so
favorites
before we move to
yeah.
things that we hated, one of my favorites was The Sympathizer.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that too, actually.
A
book of colonial or post-colonial literature.
I loved it so much. Have you ever read it?
I have not.
Okay, so it's pretty dense. It's basically